Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a disturbing nature.
And we're not going to hold back on the graphic details and disturbing content.
So we do not recommend our podcast for children under the age of 13.
And while we respect the victims and their families involved in these tragic cases,
we're also going to be critical of mistakes that are made during the investigations.
And we're going to use dark humor to express ourselves now and then.
So with that said, this podcast may not be for everyone.
And that's okay. We're glad you're here checking us out.
And if you've made it this far, welcome to the Unsung Murder Ballads family. And follow us on Instagram at Unsung Murder Ballads if you want to talk to us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. This is episode 84. I am Janus Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
All right, so welcome back everyone. We've got an interesting episode for you today.
I sure hope it's interesting.
Wouldn't it be horrible if I did a really boring one?
I have a really, really boring murder for you today. That's what I got.
That would be awful.
Take
there is a case, though. Like, I watched this documentary, and the way they did the documentary made it interesting. But because they, like, Tarantino'd it, where it wasn't in order. But if you were to have taken it out of order, it was, like, so boring.
Oh.
If you put it back in order, it was like, oh, he killed his family, and it took him, like, a day to figure it out. Like, that was
Storytelling is truly an art.
It is. And I have one that I have like a for Joyous information, in the distance. And this one, I literally sat here. I put all the notes together. I've been working on it. I'm like, how do I make this my own? Because multiple people have told this story. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how do I make this unique? But as much as I keep fucking with it, there's one version of this story that is so well done that realistically I have to tell it that way. Because
we can always give them their flowers.
Yes, and this person completely deserves the credit for how he put together this case, like how he presented it when he did his documentary. But there's no better way to tell it. As much as I keep fucking with it, he had the best way.
Mm-hmm.
So we will dive straight in then. I do need to give an additional trigger warning to all our listeners. This case does involve the sexual assault of children, so obviously if that's not something you can handle, now would be the time to stop. On May 15th, 2005, 8-year-old Shasta thought she saw someone hiding in her bedroom closet while she was trying to fall asleep. After being comforted by her brother, she fell asleep assuming she had imagined it. However, hours later she was awoken by her mother who was in tears. Her mother told her, "You need to wake up. Someone's in the house."
Oh, no.
Shasta was led out of her bedroom, and she saw her mother's boyfriend and one of her brothers lying face down on the floor of the living room with zip ties around their wrists and ankles, as well as duct tape covering their mouths.
Oh, no.
A man who wore all black and had night vision goggles stood in the room holding a shotgun. After tying up Shasta and carrying her outside to his car, the man returned inside. Shasta heard her mother start to scream, but then stop, as if she didn't have time to scream.
Oh.
This is the tragic case of the murders of the Groene family.
Oh no, it's all of them.
This is a brutal one.
No.
In May of 2005, near Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, a neighbor of the Groene family saw what appeared to be blood on the front door of their front door and called the police. Brenda Groene, who was 40, and her boyfriend Mark McKenzie, 37, and Brenda's 13-year-old son Slade were found bound with duct tape and brutally beaten to death in their home.
Oh, God.
When investigators arrived, they noticed Brenda's other 2 children, 8-year-old Shasta and 9-year-old Dylan, were not among the dead.
Oh, no.
At first, they thought the children must have been staying with their father or had run out of the home to escape the killer, but after talking to other family members and searching over 400 acres of land,
wow.
Looking for them, they couldn't find them, so they started to grow concerned, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Days turned into weeks as local law enforcement, along with the FBI, continued to search for the children and the killer. Billboards with the faces of Shasta and Dylan were posted everywhere. I mean, there was not a single person living in that area who did not know what those two kids looked like.
Yeah, I bet.
And again, this is Idaho. It's not like it's Boston or New York where you could lose that in the clutter of everything.
Right. It's rural, so there can't be that many people who look similar around.
Right. Now, just a little bit of history on the victims here. Brenda Groene was born on March 3rd, 1965, in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, the oldest of 4 girls. So she never left this area. Coeur d'Alene is the largest city in northern Idaho, presently at roughly 56,000 people. You know, like I said before, compared to where we live, it's not very big.
Yeah, pretty small.
But it is beautiful, it's scenic, and it's great for those people who love the outdoors.
Oh, I bet.
Brenda was looked up to by her younger sisters, and she was always there for them. Her sisters also stated that looking good and being respectable was really important to Brenda. She was also described as stubborn but great. In 1986, she married a blues musician named Stephen Groene, and they would have 5 children together. Vance, Jesse, Slade, Dylan, and their only girl, Shasta. The couple divorced in 2001, and the oldest children, Vance and Jesse, chose to live with their father, while the other 3 stayed with Brenda. Brenda and her children lived in a home known as Wolf Lodge that was just off Interstate 90, 9 miles outside Coeur d'Alene. The house did not have all the modern amenities, and in many ways it was like living in a cabin on the mountainside. No washer or dryer, no stove, etc.
No stove?
No stove. I'm guessing they used like a wood-burning stove. I meant like no gas oven.
Oh, okay. I was like, girl, what?
The family was known to be friendly and open, and there was a sort of standing invitation to everyone to just stop by whenever to say hi and have drinks and hang out.
Right, which feels normal in like a community like that.
I would think so too. And it was normal for my friends growing up. My mother had an open door policy. They could just let themselves in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, their neighbors were nearby, but they weren't very close, meaning that no one heard anything on that fateful night.
Oh, that's tough, yeah.
Brenda's son Slade was born on March 29th, 1992. He was described as a typical teenage boy and was beginning to become more independent and becoming interested in girls. He also loved music like his father. Dylan was born on July 16th, 1995, and was described as sweet and shy, but once he knew you, he would open up. Brenda called him her teddy bear because he loved to snuggle up with her.
Aww.
When Shasta finally came along, the family had their first girl, and that made her special to everyone. Shasta was described as being tough when she was little, which makes perfect sense having so many older brothers.
Mm-hmm.
She did all the things her brothers did and also enjoyed being her mother's little helper around the house. Not long after Brenda and Stephen divorced, Brenda began seeing Mark Mackenzie. Mark treated Brenda well and treated her children as if they were his own. By all accounts, Mark was a good dude. After 4 years of dating, Mark moved in with Brenda and the kids, and everything seemed to be working out. And I wish I could say this is where the story ends and they all live happily ever after. Yeah. But, you know.
Unfortunately, we don't tell happy stories here.
No, as a murder podcast, you know.
Yep, sorry, you signed up for it.
So I've debated heavily on how to tell this story and concluded that we need to know the paths the killer took in his life, both figuratively and literally, to fully appreciate how avoidable all of this was.
Ugh.
And that is my polite way of saying, when will the courts learn that repeat offenders will repeat offend?
My God, will they ever fucking learn?
It's fucking ridiculous. And you're going to get pissed.
Oh, I'm ready.
So here's his story. Joseph Edward Duncan III was born in Fort Liberty, North Carolina on February 25th, 1963. He was the fourth of 5 children born to Joseph Jr. and Lillian May. He had 3 older sisters and a younger brother. Duncan's father was in the U.S. Army, and because of this, the family moved from city to city, both within the U.S. and abroad, changing locations every year or two until the elder Duncan finally retired. And at that point, the younger Duncan was 12 years old. Duncan's mother was described as a domineering woman, and although he claimed that she had abused him as a child, his brother disputed that.
Interesting.
Duncan's parents split up in 1979 and would divorce in 1983. His sisters soon left the household all at once, and Duncan remained behind with his mother while his brother went to live with their father. Duncan attended Lakes High School, but did not graduate. And of course, as in many of these type of cases, he had a long history of being a violent sexual predator.
Yikes. Already?
He committed his first recorded sex crime in 1978 when he was 15 years old.
Oh, God.
In that incident, he raped a 9-year-old boy at gunpoint.
Oh.
Yeah.
At 15?
15 and a 9-year-old kid.
Oh.
At fucking gunpoint.
At gunpoint? Where the fuck is he getting a gun?
I don't know, but I'll tell you what. At 9 years old, I don't even think I'd understand the concept of how dangerous. I mean, I know how dangerous a gun was, but like, I don't know. Like, it's just weird to me that you even needed the gun.
Right. Oh, God. It's so gross. So awful.
The following year, he was arrested for driving a stolen car. He was sentenced as a juvenile and sent to the Jesse Diceland Boys Ranch in Tacoma, where he told a therapist that he had bound and sexually assaulted 6 boys there.
At the place, like at
Yes.
juvie?
Yeah, he's staying there. He assaulted 6 boys.
And he told them that?
And he told the therapist that. Exactly.
What the fuck?
He also told the therapist that he estimated that he raped 13 boys by the time he was 16.
What the fuck?
Yeah, this dude's fucked up. In 1980, Duncan stole a number of guns from a neighbor and abducted a 14-year-old boy, raping him at gunpoint.
Oh.
He was sentenced to 20 years in prison for this crime, but was released on parole in 1994 after serving only 14 years. While out on parole, Duncan is known to have lived in several places in the Seattle area. He was arrested again in 1996, this time for marijuana use, but was released on parole several weeks later with new restrictions. It's around this time in 1996 that 2 girls named Sammy Jo White and Carmen Cubias disappeared from Seattle, and a boy named Anthony Martinez disappeared from Riverside County, California in 1997. All 3 children would be found murdered, but we're gonna discuss those in greater detail later. So just put that in your back pocket. Duncan would be arrested in Missouri and returned to prison in 1997 after violating the terms of his parole. There's no information on why he was arrested, unless it's just for being outside the state.
Right.
But he was released from prison on July 14th, 2000, with time off for good behavior, and he moved to Fargo, North Dakota. Yeah. Fucking ridiculous. This good behavior shit for violent offenders, especially violent sexual offenders.
Right. It's like, yeah, I'm fine with it for like a drug offender. I really don't care about that. But it's like,
yeah, if you're a thief, yeah, okay, whatever. You know,
whatever.
Violence.
If you're a sex offender?
Yes, 100% agree with you. In March 2005, Duncan was charged with the July 3rd, 2004 molestation of 2 boys at a playground in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota.
Oh my God. Like, and to think like how many times he's getting caught doing this, how many times did he do it then? Because so rarely are these things caught and prosecuted.
Correct. Because most, like, think about it. If I was a young boy and I was raped by someone, I don't think I'd go home and tell my parents.
Right. So many are too scared to say anything.
There's shame involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The only way I would tell my parents, because I would fight probably to the death. You know what I mean? That's who I was as a kid. So I would have gone home bloodied and beaten if I survived it, you know. So then I probably would have told my parents, but that's different. So on April 5th, 2005, Duncan appeared before a Becker County judge who set his bail at $15,000.
That doesn't feel like enough.
It doesn't, but I don't think he has it.
Right. I guess that's the whole point.
Now, if you ready for this shit?
Probably not.
A Fargo businessman with whom Duncan had become acquainted helped him post that bail.
Are you fucking joking?
I can't even imagine why you would do that for someone who raped 2 boys.
Literally.
Like,
or for someone who was even accused of that.
Exactly.
Like, why would you want that person on the streets? And
I wouldn't do that for a family member. I wouldn't do that for my best friend.
No. No.
No. Even if I was a quadrillionaire. You know what I mean?
Literally.
And as anyone would expect, this motherfucker skipped bail and disappeared.
Of course. I mean, I always said bail shouldn't exist. If they're a violent offender and you can't trust them not to stay in the area, then you should keep them.
Exactly.
Why is it about money?
Well,
why do we involve money in this?
Because they want the money.
Because they want the money.
Yes. So it's at this time that Duncan spotted the Groene family while driving across the Idaho Panhandle on Interstate 90. He said he noticed Shasta and Dylan playing in their swimsuits in the yard of their home, which was next to the freeway, and he began doing surveillance on them.
Oh, no.
So much of what I'm going to be discussing now comes directly from interviews, years after the events in some cases. So some details may not be 100% accurate, but for the most part, this is what happened. On May 15th, 2005, Shasta thought she saw someone hiding in her bedroom closet while she was trying to sleep and became upset. After Dylan comforted her, she eventually fell asleep. Hours later, her mother woke her up telling her, "You need to wake up. Someone's in the house who doesn't want us here."
Oh.
She followed her mother and saw Mark and Slade laying face down on the living room floor, bound with duct tape covering their mouths. Duncan was wearing all black with night vision goggles, holding a shotgun. After tying up Shasta and Dylan, Duncan carried both of them out to his car, then returned to the home where he beat Brenda and Mark to death with a hammer.
Oh my God.
Duncan also beat Slade with the hammer and left him for dead. Shasta heard the thumping and the grunts of pain, but didn't know what was going on.
Oh.
Her brother Slade, who was 13, somehow got to his feet, got his feet loose and stood up and came running out of the house, disoriented and bloodied.
Oh, God.
Duncan chased him down, repeatedly striking him with the hammer again and again. At one point, Slade sat down on the family picnic table before collapsing to the ground.
Oh.
Some time later, after Duncan had left with Shasta and Dylan, Slade somehow made his way back into the house and died lying next to his already deceased mother.
Oh.
Duncan...
That's so sad.
It's so fucked up. The strength this kid had to stay alive. Ugh.
It's so sad.
So Duncan took Shasta and Dylan into the wilds of western Montana, where he tortured and sexually abused them.
Oh.
Duncan made the children call him Dad and told...
Ew.
Yeah, fucking disgusting. And he told them that they would be allowed to live if they did what they were told. Duncan kept them there for weeks, chained to trees whenever he had to leave.
Oh.
Which I'm guessing he had to leave to get supplies and stuff like that.
Right, yeah. Ugh.
Shasta would calm Dylan by telling him she'd help him survive their ordeal.
Oh.
One day, Duncan told the two children that if they caught a squirrel that kept coming into their campsite, that they would get to go home.
It's so fucked up.
The two took off after the squirrel. And Dylan actually caught it.
Wow.
So the two began packing up, thinking that Duncan was actually going to keep his promise.
Oh, these poor fucking kids.
While packing, Shasta suddenly heard a gunshot and froze where she was, knowing that something terrible had just happened.
Oh, no.
She ran to the other side of the vehicle and saw Dylan lying on the ground, screaming.
No.
Duncan had been digging through a clear plastic box looking for a beer when a shotgun that he also kept in the box went off, hitting Dylan in the stomach. Duncan insisted that Dylan's death was an accident. Shasta watched as Duncan put the shotgun to Dylan's head and pulled the trigger, but it failed to fire.
Oh my God.
While Dylan begged Duncan not to kill him, Duncan reloaded the shotgun, put it back to the boy's head, and pulled the trigger.
And he says it's a fucking accident?
Yes. Dylan was killed instantly, and Duncan started crying, and he told Shasta that he only killed him to put him out of his misery.
That's so fucked.
That's how he claims it was an accident. But in reality, he could have saved him had he actually brought him to a hospital.
Right.
But then again, who knows how far away they were? They were out in the woods of Montana.
Right. They could have been very far. And also, he would never have done that.
No, of course he wouldn't have done that. That'd be ridiculously stupid on his part. Who, despite everything, he's actually been fairly smart about how he's been doing this whole past few weeks since taking the kids.
Right, that no one has found them yet.
Yeah. So something inside Shasta pushed her to say and do anything to stay on Duncan's good side and earn his trust.
Mm-hmm.
Shasta believed it was her mother's spirit guiding her so that she could get out of this alive.
Oh.
Over the course of days, Shasta listened to Duncan talk about his life and spoke about her own. One day, however, Duncan asked her, "How do you want to die?"
Oh.
He continued, "You have two choices. I can shoot you, or you can be strangled to death." She told him, "I want you to strangle me, I guess."
Oh.
Shasta knew that if he strangled her, she would have more time to talk him out of it, but if he were to shoot her, he could just pull the trigger and it would all be over. This girl's only
How
9.
old is this girl
She's
again?
9 years old.
My God.
I don't think I wouldn't have had that foresight at 9 years old.
No, and like she's doing all the textbook things that you're supposed to do, which is like tell the person about yourself, make yourself a human being to them. Like she's 9 years old. There's no reason. Ugh.
Yeah, she's doing.
Her instincts are good.
Yeah, she's really good. So Duncan had her lay down on the ground and he put a rope around her neck. He tightened the rope, and as Shasta described it, everything turned white, and then she said, "Please don't Jet." Now, Jet is Duncan's nickname that he had shared with the children.
Oh.
So with those words, he loosened his grip on the rope and started crying.
Oh.
He said to her, this 9-year-old that he abducted and sexually assaulted, he said, quote, "I don't know why, but when you call me that, I can tell you really care about me," unquote.
God fucking damn it.
Fucking ridiculous.
Well, she's smart.
Well, and at this point, she knew she had gained his trust.
Yeah.
So Shasta convinced Duncan that she wanted him to know a lot more about her. She said she earned his trust by manipulating him and making him feel like she didn't want to leave his side.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, she's smart. That's the fawn response right there. She's so smart.
She talked Duncan into returning to her hometown of Coeur d'Alene so that she could show him where she went to school.
Wow.
Yeah. So in Kellogg, Idaho, which is about 40 miles east of Coeur d'Alene, a store clerk thought she recognized Shasta as she wandered around the gas station, but did not confront her as nothing appeared out of the ordinary. The employee and her manager later notified authorities after reviewing the surveillance camera footage and identified that was Shasta in the video with a man, but that wouldn't happen until after these next events.
Oh, wow.
Duncan decided to stop and eat with Shasta at a local Denny's.
My God. And he doesn't eat. Like, is he not seeing the billboards?
He must not be. Clearly not. Shasta said, quote, "He felt like he was learning about my life and getting to know a vulnerable part of me. I was just trying to manipulate him," unquote.
Damn, girl.
The two entered the restaurant and sat down to eat. The waitress, Amber Dean, recognized Shasta immediately. And I mean, her face had been on billboards for weeks, right?
Right.
So she noted that Shasta didn't speak without looking to Duncan for permission.
Mm-hmm.
The waitress felt that all the pieces were in place for this to be Shasta, and she went back to her manager, a woman named Linda Olson, and told her that they should call the police. She even went so far as to say that if she was wrong, she would personally pay for their meals herself for making the mistake.
Wow.
So the police arrived, and an officer walked up behind Shasta towards their table. The officer looked at her and asked her what her name was. She looked at Duncan, who nodded and told her, "It's okay, you can tell him." She then said, "My name is Shasta," and the cop grabbed Duncan and handcuffed him.
Wow.
And I don't really go into too much detail, but the whole restaurant recognized her. Like,
oh, I bet.
People were actually positioning themselves near the exits just in case.
Oh, I bet, right? Because they're like, he might have a gun.
Exactly.
This could be dangerous. It's actually kind of remarkable that everyone kept their cool enough to not blow the cover of like the time it would take for the police to get there.
Exactly. Now, I've played practical jokes at restaurants a million times, and it's hard to keep a small group of people from laughing as you're waiting for a joke to happen. I can't even imagine the tension in this moment.
In this Denny's.
Right? Those are some hard-ass people up in Coeur d'Alene, let me tell you.
For real.
After Duncan was taken outside, Amber, the waitress, sat with Shasta and asked her where her brother Dylan was.
Oh.
Shasta told her that he was in heaven with her mother.
Oh.
Shasta was taken to the hospital for medical treatment and was reunited with her father, Stephen.
Oh.
Now, when Shasta was found without Dylan, authorities had little hope of finding him alive, but were determined to find his remains. Police asked the public for tips, specifically with respect to sightings of a stolen red Jeep Cherokee with Missouri plates that Duncan was driving at the time of his arrest. On July 4th, 2005, investigators found human remains at a remote makeshift campsite in the Lolo National Forest near St. Regis, Montana.
Oh.
The remains were sent to the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia, and DNA testing positively identified those as Dylan's.
Oh, so sad.
Coeur d'Alene police, meanwhile, detained Duncan on kidnapping charges and on his outstanding federal warrant for not appearing in court. What do they call it? Skipping bail, I think.
Yeah.
Afterwards, Shasta went to live with her father, and she took a year off of school and tried her best to get back to normal while a slew of reporters and cameras followed her every move.
Oh, I fucking hate them for that.
She's a little kid. Leave her the fuck alone.
Like, let her heal.
She went to therapy, but over the years, she suffered from an eating disorder and self-harmed as she struggled to come to terms with what happened to her.
Of course.
Before the tragic incident, Shasta had been really close with her brothers, and she had always wanted to be with them, which made it even harder for her to adjust to this new life without them.
Oh.
Yeah, like once you don't have to worry about survival, everything, I think the weight of it all really crushes you. And I can't
absolutely.
And I can't imagine what that's like for a 9-year-old.
It's unimaginable.
A public memorial service was held for Dylan on July 16th, 2005, which would have been his 10th birthday. Now, Duncan's arrest led the FBI to launch a nationwide review of unsolved missing child cases.
Mm-hmm.
He was implicated as a possible suspect in several crimes that occurred between 94 and 97 while he was on parole, and 2000 and 2005 while he was free from prison. After her rescue, Shasta told investigators that Duncan had told her about other crimes he had committed.
Wow.
Including the Martinez murder in 97 and the 96 murders of Sammy Jo White and her half-sister Carmen Cubayas in Seattle.
Oh my God.
Now, these are the ones I told you to put in your back pocket from earlier.
Yeah.
So we're going to dive into a little bit of detail. Just a little bit, though. On July 6, 1996, Sammy Jo White, who was 11, and her sister Carmen Cubayas, who was 9, disappeared after leaving the Crest Motel on Aurora Avenue North in Seattle. Their mother, Margaret Delaney, when she had to testify about this, she sobbed on the stand, just couldn't even control herself after the day after her daughters disappeared.
Oh.
She said that she had left the two girls with their 15-year-old brother and another younger sibling with instructions that they all stay in the hotel where they were living. Then Margaret went to pick up a change of clothing for the children at a friend's house where she could get money to buy groceries. While she was gone, the two girls decided to walk to a nearby fast food restaurant to see if they could get some food. And that was the last time they were seen alive.
Oh.
I'm just imagining a woman with 4 kids who are living in a hotel. Like, she's going somewhere to get clothes and money for food. What options did she really have?
She did not have options.
That sucks.
Ugh.
On February 10th, 1998, a year and a half later, the remains of Sammy Jo and Carmen were found by a transient living in an abandoned barn roughly 15 miles from where they were last seen. The King County Medical Examiner's Office says the girls were probably killed very soon after they disappeared.
Ugh.
Duncan told FBI investigator Agent Sotka that he grabbed the girls on an impulse and that he killed them by hitting them in the head with a crowbar.
Oh, Lord. So he really has his methods.
Yeah, he likes to hit people in the head. Fucking asshole. He told Agent Sotka that the two girls were his first revenge.
Revenge?
Revenge.
Against fucking what, dude?
This revenge was because that he went to jail that first time.
What the fuck?
Yeah, but his actual words were sheer unadulterated revenge. Yeah.
Jesus.
Then on April 4th, 1997, 10-year-old Anthony Michael Martinez was playing with friends in the front yard of his home in Beaumont, California, when an unknown man approached the group asking for help to find his missing cat. When the boys refused, the man grabbed Anthony at knife point and threw him into his vehicle.
Oh my God.
Now, Anthony's father, Ernesto Medina, had heard the other children screaming, "A man's got Anthony," and he ran outside, and he saw a 6-year-old boy limping towards the apartment with one shoe on and one shoe off, saying the same thing: "Someone took Tony."
Oh my God.
So he ran inside and called 911, and he grabbed his keys and he began searching for his son, checking.
Oh, that's so scary.
He would check back at home often, but he would go out and search, and he did that for 3 days and 3 nights.
Oh my God. That's so heartbreaking.
It's crazy how fast it happened, and that this fucker did it in front of other people. Like, he just brazenly did it.
There are no words.
After a 2-week search, Anthony's body was found nude and partially decomposed in Indio, California, which is like an hour-ish away from where he was taken.
Oh.
Vultures in a remote part of a canyon led authorities to the boy's body, which was bound with duct tape and partially buried under a pile of rocks.
Oh my God.
And the worst part is he just discards them like they're nothing. He has no respect for them after he's done all this. Not that he had any respect for him to begin with.
But it's so ugh.
It's insult to injury.
It is.
Agent Sotka said Duncan told him he bludgeoned Anthony with a rock that he found at the scene and wasn't sure whether the child was dead when he left him in the desert.
Wow.
Duncan also said he taped Anthony's mouth shut to stop him from crying out because he had been haunted by the screams of one of the 2 girls after she had watched her sister be murdered.
Wow. That is so fucked.
I'm left speechless. Like, why fucking kill them? Like, if
you're haunted by the screams,
stop killing. Exactly.
Stop causing the screams, maybe.
Fucking people. And they kept letting this fucker out.
I can't believe that.
So although a composite sketch of the suspect had been made available and a partial fingerprint was taken from the duct tape found on Anthony's body, the case did go cold, obviously. So Riverside authorities were able to match the fingerprint taken from the tape to Duncan after his arrest, and they officially announced his connection to the case. Now, Duncan complained that by going back to jail on a probation violation for a month had cost him a really good job, and therefore the murder of Anthony a year later was his revenge against society for sending him back to jail.
Oh my God, I literally can't with this guy.
I just don't understand how he thinks taking out his anger on an innocent child somehow balances any kind of scale.
No, it's just because there's nothing right with this man.
Duncan first appeared in a Kootenai County Court in Idaho on July 13th, 2005, where he was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of first-degree kidnapping. The county prosecutors initially planned to charge him with the kidnapping of Shasta and Dylan. However, they deferred those charges to federal courts, as transporting children across state lines for the purpose of sexual exploitation is a federal offense. Duncan also agreed to cooperate with the Kootenai County Sheriff's detectives investigating his crime to provide the passwords to his encrypted files that were stored on his computer.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. This gets
Oh, no.
This gets ugly.
I see where this is going, and I don't like it.
Among the evidence found on his computer and later viewed in court was a 33-minute video that depicted a nude Duncan torturing, physically and verbally assaulting, and sexually abusing a nude and restrained Dylan.
No. Oh.
The video showed this abuse conducted in various interior areas of what appeared to be a dilapidated single-level wooden shed or small cabin.
Oh.
Other evidence including human remains, a wire noose from the cabin interior, and other videos of Duncan's continued torture of Dylan.
Oh, and they were showing this in court. Oh, my God.
During one of the videos, a child could be heard screaming in pain while Duncan shouted, quote, "The devil is here, boy. The devil himself. The devil likes to watch children suffer and cry," unquote.
Oh, my fucking God.
Imagine being like a 9 or 10-year-old kid, being fucking tortured and listening to your torturer say shit like that.
There's just no imagining that. It's so beyond awful.
On December 3rd, 2007, Duncan pled guilty to all charges against him in federal court. As a condition of the agreement, Shasta would not have to testify in the trial.
Oh, that's good. I'm really glad.
Due to a gag order, other details of that plea agreement were not released, so we don't really know what else was agreed to.
Mm-hmm.
On August 27th, 2008, after a 3-hour deliberation, the jury recommended the death penalty.
Wow.
And a judge imposed 3 death sentences for kidnapping resulting in death, sexual exploitation of a child resulting in death, and use of a firearm in a violent crime resulting in death. The jury...
Yeah, I can see how there could have been a lot more charges there.
Oh, a lot more. But realistically, once you're scheduled to die, what's the point of doing anything else? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess.
The jurors who imposed the death penalty on Duncan were offered counseling in order for them to cope with the horrific evidence they had to see during the trial.
Yeah, like that's a trauma, like secondhand trauma to watch that video. That never leaves you.
I'm sure. And I wouldn't want to watch it. And
no. And
it wouldn't take much of seeing it. Like, I wouldn't have to see much to recommend the death penalty.
No, honestly, and I feel like, I don't know much about how the courts work, but it feels like you could have had someone who has special training, like watch that, tell you what happens in it.
You know, that's not.
But I guess it wouldn't have the same emotional punch.
I was gonna say, like, that's not a bad idea, but then it would still be hard to know how impactful it was. Yeah.
True.
So on November 3rd, 2008, Duncan was sentenced to an additional 3 consecutive terms of life without parole in federal prison for the kidnapping of Shasta and sexually abusing her and Dylan. On March 15th, 2011, Duncan pled guilty to Anthony Martinez's murder and was sentenced to 2 additional life terms.
He's in jail for life.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
Well, he also has the death penalty, right?
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I don't even know why they bothered other than to just have it on the record.
Yeah, have it on the record, have it like closed case.
I'm sure we
know what happened.
I'm sure his family probably wanted it more than anything else.
Yeah, probably.
So as part of a plea deal, the sentence came without the possibility of parole or the right to appeal. But again, none of that's going to matter.
Right.
Now, although Duncan could have faced a separate death penalty sentence in addition to the ones he'd already had, the Riverside County District Attorney Paul Zellerbach justified the life sentence by stating that he had consulted with the Martinez family who wanted closure for the case and that the federal system will kill him long before the state of California would, which isn't wrong.
No, it's not.
So in 2016, Shasta Groene, then 19 years old, started a petition called Slade and Dillon's Law in honor of her 2 brothers whom Duncan had murdered. In the petition description, she stated that convicted sex offenders should not be let out of jail. period.
Go off, girl.
This would effectively mean that the 3-strike rule for violent sex offenders would be reduced to a single strike. By the time the petition was closed, it had 51,820 supporters, but it did not appear to have been put into law.
Ugh, that sucks. Honestly, like, truly, why are there 3 strikes?
I don't know. It's crazy to me. But I just think the government hasn't quite taken seriously enough what the consequences of these assaults are.
No, like, they really don't take into account the human cost of each and every one of these crimes.
Yeah, I think we're getting there, but I just think the gears of changing the government on this is crazy. Like, there's no reason for it. So Duncan was imprisoned on federal death row at the United States Penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana. However, Duncan would never actually be executed. In October of 2020, Duncan underwent brain surgery after he was diagnosed with glioblastoma. He declined any treatment and rejected chemotherapy and radiation therapy.
Huh.
He died on March 28, 2021 at the age of 58, and his body was cremated. Now, the community of Coeur d'Alene raised money and helped build a house for Shasta and her father, Steve, to live in.
Oh, that's really sweet.
Years later, though, Steve would have to fight the county to not take the home from them.
Are you kidding?
Well, it kind of makes sense as we go into this next part. He lived there since 2007, but Shasta went on to get married and didn't live in the area.
Oh.
But her father would continue to live there, but he was struggling financially. And unfortunately, he died of cancer at the age of 62.
Oh, oh no, she has no parents.
So the trustees of the Shasta Groene Charitable Trust concluded that they should sell or rent the house to benefit Shasta.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Right. And unfortunately, there's no further information regarding what they eventually did with the house.
Well, hopefully it's still benefiting her.
Hopefully. Now, Shasta, during later interviews, said she suffered from severe guilt since she survived and her brother Dylan didn't.
Mm-hmm.
She started drinking at the age of 13, smoking marijuana, and hanging out with older people as she tried to just numb everything.
Yeah, of course she did.
Shasta spent much of her adolescence in juvenile detention.
No, poor thing. Oh.
She would get married to a man named Michael, and they would have some children. She would, however, find herself in trouble with the law for exposing her 2 young children to danger.
Oh, that's so sad. The cycle repeating. It's just so sad.
In 2016, Shasta pled guilty to 2 misdemeanor counts of injury to a child and was ordered to serve unsupervised probation through October of 2019. Court records say she endangered a 1-year-old child in her custody by leaving methamphetamine where the child could potentially ingest it.
Oh, God, no.
And that she also left the drug in close proximity to a 1-month-old baby.
Girl.
I mean, you're right about the trauma and the she's struggling.
No, of course.
But when you have children around, you have to be more responsible.
You do.
Shasta, then 21, was accused of violating the terms of her probation just a month later.
Oh.
A Canyon County judge declined to sentence her to jail time, instead again instituting 18 months of probation, but this time it would be supervised.
Hey.
Shasta spoke about the difficulties of trying to deal with life as a celebrity victim on top of the abuse she suffered at the hands of Duncan.
Right.
Judge Thomas Sullivan warned Shasta against giving into backsliding. He said, quote, "It's one thing if you have a few missteps. If you're running, if you're hiding, if you're lying, that's only going to get you into hot water."
Mm-hmm.
In 2019, there was a missing persons report released regarding Shasta and her 2 sons.
Oh, no.
But they were found safe and soon after, with no further information being released about that.
Huh.
So that's a little weird. I think they probably took a last-minute impulsive, like, little mini vacation kind of thing and scared the shit out of everybody.
Right.
As of the most recent report I could find, Shasta was living in Boise, Idaho with her husband and their 4 sons. She was working as a supervising housekeeper at a hotel, and she has shared her story in the hopes of helping other victims who might be struggling. To which she said, "You are not your past, and every day is a new chapter."
Oh, well, I hope her new chapters are working out better for her.
Agreed. It's such a, I mean, her survival story is amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
She had everything she needed instinctively to survive that. I think, unfortunately, everything after was too much for her. And now
that's the consequence of the trauma, is that like while you're in it, you can survive, but can you survive the aftermath?
Exactly. I'm glad. I mean, like I said, I'm glad she survived. It's a shitty story, that everything she went through, but at least she's out there and she's doing it. So I'll give her that. And from there, like,
I hope she's doing better now.
Yeah, she was interviewed not that long ago, so she seems to be doing okay now. And I'm glad. And we will obviously post pictures of her both as a child and, as the most recent ones I could find. She has an interesting facial tattoo, which I thought was kind of cool. So, a little weird, especially since you're working at a hotel.
Yeah, well, housekeeping, you're not at the front desk.
That's true. So yeah, so thank you everybody for joining us. We will see you soon. Once again, I am Janus Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.